Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the chairman of the Trade Development Council, Mr. Jackso. Mr. Jackso has an outstanding career both in government and in private sector. He started his career with the Hong Kong government, and in fact at some point in time during 85 to 92 he was executive director of the Trade Development Council. Then he became chairman and chief executive of the Mass Transit Corporation. He's been also deputy chairman and group managing director of PCCW from 2003 to 2007. Now, as chairman of the Trade Development Council, Mr. So presides over a 19-member council comprising heads of Hong Kong major commerce and industry organizations and senior government officials. As you know, the TDC is the main arm for Hong Kong to promote trade between Hong Kong and the rest of the world. And the TDC, based of course in Hong Kong, can assist anybody who wants to interested in doing business with Hong Kong or through Hong Kong. On top of the head office, the TDC has over 40 offices all over the world who are there to assist you in developing your business with or through Hong Kong. So I'm very grateful to Mr. So to have accepted to come to us, and clearly Mr. So wants a dialogue with all of you, so please prepare your questions so that we can have a very meaningful dialogue. Now it is my pleasure to give the floor to Mr. Jackso.
Thank you, George. Good morning, delegates, and welcome to Hong Kong. Welcome to this forum. First of all, those who have been attending this forum in previous years would wonder why the format has changed. That I'm instead of standing up and making a speech, I'm sitting on a chair. Well, first of all, I'm getting old. And second, I get some feedback from delegates in previous years to say that they come halfway around the world without a chance to sit down with me and talk about the TDC, Hong Kong, and the world. So here I am sitting down and you're sitting down. I'd like to say first and foremost that we are very, very grateful to all of our delegates around the world in Hong Kong associations everywhere. We are very proud of you because we consider that members of the Hong Kong associations are actually our ambassadors in various countries. You are our connections with the local communities in those countries. You broadcast, you spread the message from Hong Kong, and you bring business to Hong Kong. And that is why we think that it is a very worthwhile cause for TDC to support Hong Kong associations around the world. And as for coming to this forum, coming to this conference, again, we thank you for making the effort, but we hope that we'll make your efforts of coming here worthwhile, that your investment of coming to Hong Kong every year to attend this forum would give you great return. Because I think that the takeaway value of coming to Hong Kong is more than just a visit to this place. It is actually coming here to network with your fellow members, with your fellow delegates from all countries. As the chairman said, there are big delegations from Japan, delegations from China, and delegations from 26 countries. And this is really a very, very international gathering. And I think, and I'm very, very confident, that the outcome from your discussions is much more useful than the international summit that took place in Cannes or whatever, that usually concluded with nothing. Secondly, I think also that this kind of atmosphere and this format is also conducive to identifying business opportunities. From various countries, you can get to see the people in business, and you can talk to them about what business opportunities there are in those countries, particularly in this part of the world, in Japan, in China, in Southeast Asia. And thirdly, of course, coming to Hong Kong, I hope will also renew your experience of the Hong Kong business culture and the Hong Kong business atmosphere. But on our side, we also try to make investments in effort and in money to make your visit worthwhile. So hopefully at the end of this forum, you'll go away happy that you have made this effort. Looking around the world, we see a lot of turmoil. We see turmoil in Europe. I don't know when all this euro debt crisis is going to resolve itself. I think the printing press is not working fast enough to print enough money. And in the U.S., of course, delegates from the U.S. will be able to tell me when Congress will be able to resolve the difference between the two parties before they even come to solve the problem of the creating jobs and so on and so forth. And of course, in the Middle East, every morning we see fighting is still going on. And Japan, unfortunately, they're still suffering from the aftermath of the triple disaster of the tsunami and the nuclear fallout. So Hong Kong, in a way, is an enclave with relative stability and relative prosperity for you to come and take a refuge from the world of turmoil. And this happens to be, Hong Kong happens to be in the center of a region that still registers the fastest economic growth in the world. China is still saying that it's growing at 9%, 9.5%. Its aim is to reduce it to 7%, but even 7% is not a shameful figure. Of course, China has its own problems. China has a problem of inflation. China has a problem of how to deal with what they consider a property bubble. China has other problems like rising cost and, there's always argument on the value of the yuan. But having said all that, China is setting its sights higher in its 12 five-year plan. And I hope that during this period you also get to know a little more about China's plan for the next 5 years. It is going to concentrate on internal consumption. So there's a lot of spending by Chinese people inside China itself, as well as going outside of China. China is spending a lot of efforts to invest in alternative energy, a lot of efforts to clean up the environment. So ecology would be a hot topic. To develop new materials, high technology, high tech would be a major issue for the next 5 years. So all these new directives and all these new targets would create opportunities for businesses around the world. And TDC is already well positioned to take advantage of these new opportunities. Again, during the next few days, I hope our people, the TDC people, would inform you of all the efforts that we are already making in, for instance, tapping the internal consumer market. We're holding various trade shows, various trade and consumer shows in first-tier, second-tier cities around China. So all these are developments that I hope would be of interest to you and will create opportunities for your business back home. Because China is experiencing another major change. It used to be just a source of manufacturing for exports, but now it is a major market for imports. It used to be a market for inward investment, that people would go to China to invest, but now it has become a source of investment for overseas. And TDC has already organized several investment missions from Chinese provinces to America and I think later on also to Europe and other places. So all these are important developments, and all these are developments that will create new opportunities. And I hope that you get to learn and get to know these opportunities over the next few days. Now, just as we will be preparing a very tight program for you, we'll work you very hard during the day. I hope you have some fun after 5 or after 7. And I know the Canadian candidates are experts in having fun after 7 o'clock. Where are the Canadians? So please bring your Japanese friends along when you have fun. And I'm sure you're no stranger to Lan Kwai Fong and other places like that. But I think the main thing is while you get to learn about the latest developments indoors, you have to go outdoors to see what the place is really like. Because if you read the newspapers, particularly the Hong Kong newspapers, you think Hong Kong is going downhill and going to the dogs. Because the newspapers take delight in attacking the government every day. And of course, the latest issue is the competition, is the race between the two candidates for the top job next year, the chief executive job. And all you read in the newspapers is how many girlfriends they have, instead of focusing on their policies and what they want to do for Hong Kong. That's the standard of the Hong Kong media. Anyway, go out and experience Hong Kong and see what the place is like. If you go to places like Tsim Sha Tsui or Causeway Bay, you see the crowds, you see the spending, you see the queues outside of the luxury stores, and you know that this place is still booming. So I'll just say these few words and see if there are any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. So. May I remind our guests to put your questions on the question and answer papers and pass them to our staff on site. So may we now invite Mr. Legros to moderate the question and answer session for us, please.
The first question here is coming from Calgary in Canada. Canada and other countries are looking to attract investments from Asia. Would Hong Kong TDC be willing to lead an investment mission from Hong Kong to Canada? This would be seen, well, I'm afraid I can't read it, but anyway, you got the question.
Yeah. Well, as I say, the TDC is constantly reviewing and modifying its focus. As you remember, many years ago, we used to be just an export promoting agency. But gradually, we have expanded our scope. And especially recently, there are two overlays onto our export promotion mission. One is that we promote services such as finance, services such as professional service like legal, accounting, architecture, and so on and so forth. And the second is that we are promoting a two-way exchange. It used to be just that we promote a one-way of outward export. But now we are promoting imports, exports, and we're also promoting any kind of economic activity that comes through Hong Kong, which gives Hong Kong a value add. For instance, investment by the Chinese investors outside of China, coming through Hong Kong would involve banking, accounting, legal services in Hong Kong. And that would give Hong Kong the value add. And by doing that, we are fulfilling our mandate as a trade promotional body. So my answer to that question is certainly we'll consider Canada as one of the targets for investment. And we are actually talking to a number of provinces in China. Later, Fred probably have something to add to this, that we would be considering also a mission of investment from China to Canada. This follows a very successful mission of a Chinese province to America, visiting cities like New York, Los Angeles. So I think this is also a very meaningful way of promoting this part of the this directional movement of capital.
Thank you, Mr. So. I have another question here. Are there any special initiatives from the Hong Kong TDC to foster trade relationships between Hong Kong and Asian countries? Very often one sees the TDC as a help to do business in Hong Kong or through Hong Kong, mostly with China. I think more and more there are opportunities for doing business in the rest of Asia. Take the ASEAN, for example. What initiatives are you taking in that respect?
Well, this is an excellent question. In fact, probably I missed it out in my opening remarks because I cannot cover everything. But Southeast Asia is definitely a booming and growing market, particularly the markets in Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and soon Myanmar. I think Myanmar is coming up and probably due for an opening now that Aung San Suu Kyi is out, and probably will also contest the next election, and the Americans are already looking favorably in lifting sanctions. So we keep a very, very watchful eye on the market in Southeast Asia, and I think during this few days you might like to talk to our Southeast Asian representative about opportunities in those markets. We think that Southeast Asia is not just growing economically, but the population is coming up, and it is also a good source of spending. So Southeast Asia is certainly one of our target areas for growth.
The TDC has a really tight network of offices all over China. When I'm discussing with business people in Europe, sometimes when I preach the essential role of Hong Kong in doing business with China, I get people who say, well, you know, we can go to China directly. After all, do we need Hong Kong? Of course, I personally think that Hong Kong is the place to be and the place to use to develop business in China. But I think really the TDC, through its network of offices, knows China so well and can definitely assist any type of big and small companies doing business in China. Would you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think this is one of the messages that we are trying to spread around the world, that, of course, people can go to China direct. They can set up their office in Shanghai, they can set up an office in Beijing, and I'm sure many of them are already doing that. But also many others are considering doing business in China through Hong Kong. And there are many successful examples of people doing that more efficiently, more cost-effectively by coming through Hong Kong. I'll give you two examples. One is that we just had a big promotion in London, entitled "Think Asia, Think Hong Kong." In other words, if you want to do business Asia, come through Hong Kong. And that particular promotion, a forum, is attended by over 12,000 companies. I mean, it just shows the amount of interest in coming through Hong Kong to do business with Asia and also China. Now, why is this? It's very simple. Because Hong Kong is the most international city in the whole of Asia. Because the international businessmen find no difficulty in adjusting to Hong Kong. There is rule of law in Hong Kong. The judicial system is very, very solid and very reliable. The professional services here, the lawyers, the accountants, the architects, all of the professions, have a very, very high standard of professionalism. Just this morning, I read in the papers that Taiwan businessmen, even Taiwan businessmen, 64% of them feel that doing business through Hong Kong is more efficient than going there by themselves. Now, Taiwan speaks the language, knows the custom, has no difficulty in communicating in mainland China, but still many of them prefer Hong Kong as the platform to do business with mainland China. So I'm just saying that, of course, people can have a choice of going direct and coming through Hong Kong, but many people who go direct to China would find that they need a long learning curve and a long time to adjust to the different environment in China, whereas coming through Hong Kong, particularly taking a Hong Kong partner, would save all of that trouble.
A question from the Japan-Hong Kong Society of Kansai. We have anxiety about the future bubble burst in China. What is your view about China's bubble and its effect on Hong Kong?
I assume that the bubble he refers to is the property inflation or price inflation of property. Now that, of course, is already the concern of the top leadership in Beijing, and there are already many measures in place to cool the property market. And actually, in many cities, the property market has already cooled down, not only in terms of transactions, but also in many of the cities in terms of price reduction of 10%, 15%. So I'm sure what the Chinese leadership in Beijing is working on is a soft landing of the property market rather than a crash. And having said that, I think you have to remember that China is a country of 1.3 billion people. 1.3 billion people that has grown, I won't say rich, but quite well off over the past 30 years of reform. And there is quite a pent-up demand for housing. And there is also an accumulated ability to purchase. So the demand for housing is always there. So I don't think that the Chinese leadership is unaware of this problem. I'm sure that they are also doing everything that they can to make sure that there's a soft landing without a crash of the property market.
Now a question from our American friends. At the APEC meeting, President Obama emphasized that the U.S. will focus growth in Asia Pacific. How do you suggest the TDC capitalize on this focus?
Well, actually, Mr. Fred Lam has got an award from the American government. What is that award, Fred? Oh, he's got a Peace Through Commerce Award for his initiative on the Pacific Bridge Initiative. The Pacific Bridge Initiative is actually doing the wrong thing, in my view. It's helping American exports to China. I'm sorry, that's only joking. Because originally TDC was set up to promote Hong Kong exports to America. As I say, this has now been refocused to promote two-way trade, and Fred has initiated this move to help American companies to take part in Hong Kong exhibitions, in trade promotions in China, because again, we feel that any economic activity that comes through Hong Kong would give us a benefit, and Hong Kong can effectively help American companies to export to China. And this is what we are also doing.
Well, we are about to close this session, but I have a last question, which is very wide, in fact, but it's coming from New Zealand Business Association. What are the long-term strategies of the Hong Kong TDC?
Do you have a whole day listening to me? Our mission is very clear. The TDC, from its inception 45 years ago, remember this is the 45th year for the TDC, is to promote trade. Trade from Hong Kong or through Hong Kong. Over the years, as Hong Kong evolved from manufacturing center to re-export center to service center for various periods of Hong Kong's development, the TDC's mission and the TDC's mandate also evolved with Hong Kong's development. When Hong Kong was just a manufacturing center, of course, we just make goods for exports. Then it's a re-export center, and we promote two-way trade, imports and exports and re-exports. And now services account for 95% of Hong Kong's economy. So naturally, we have to focus a lot more on promoting services. And that is why over the past few years, we have developed such successful events as the Asian Financial Forum every year in January. That is attended by over 1,500 delegates from around Southeast Asia, including a lot of very senior government officials. We have developed what we call a entertainment expo, which is the largest film and TV market, not only in this part of the world, but is one of the 3 largest film markets in the world, comparable to Hollywood and Cannes. So over the longer term into the future, again, we see TDC not as a static organization, but as a dynamic organization, not just coping with change, but even bringing about change to Hong Kong's economic structure. And a lot of that really is tied up with China, because China, of course, as you say, we also have an eye on other markets like Southeast Asia, but China is still by far our biggest market. So China, not only as a source of supply of goods and service, but also as a market for goods and services around the world. And I think that would be the goal of the TDC for the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. So and Mr. Legros. You may now return to your seats. It was a truly fruitful discussion. While we are changing the stage setting for the next session, the Star Leaders panel discussion,